If you are starting an Amazon business and your end goal is to sell this business in the future to potential buyers, watch this video because our guest Ken Kubec from Thrasio company, he will share some general rules which will be good for you to follow during your business journey, and these rules will make your business more valuable for potential buyers in the future. Ken Kubec represents Thrasio, and if you would like to sell your business to Thrasio, we'll be happy to introduce you directly. Just write us an email to team@orangeklik.com. You'll find the link below, the email below in the description. And this video is hosted by LISETT LEES. She works with different Amazon brands. And before you watch the conversation, click on the subscribe button of Orange Klik. Click the like button as well at the bottom, because here we talk to different Amazon experts and Amazon software creators.
Hi Ken, it's nice to have you here today. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do in Amazon space?
Great to be here. Ken Kubec, VP of Acquisitions at Thrasio. Thrasio is the largest global acquirer of Amazon FBA businesses and brands. We've been doing it for over 2.5 years at this point. We've acquired well over 100 Amazon FBA brands.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk about the fundamentals of setting business up for a successful exit, we can say so. But before we go into that, I wanted to ask, how has COVID-19 affected your side of the business? Were there any changes the way you do business? What were the trends you were seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, right, if you are selling in e-commerce and specifically on Amazon, if you weren't in a negatively impacted space, i.e., travel related products, you've seen, a tremendous, 12-month run in revenue and profit, hopefully. I think from my position on the acquisition side and looking at businesses to acquire and assessing performance, we've had a tougher job over the last 12 months as, some businesses were growing 300-400% month over month at times in, March, April, May time period. And then also businesses were taking pricing and pricing power. And, in a rare time where you could actually do that on Amazon, we're now trying to figure out, okay, maybe people were underpricing their products because they thought that they had to, but they do have leadership positioning and they can, afford to have a little bit higher pricing. But oftentimes it was suppliers were running out of stock or competitors were running out of stock and they had a short window to capitalize, et cetera. So, we're really spending a lot of time talking with the sellers saying, okay, what's sustainable, what's not. We know there was a large temporary bump. We're giving obviously sellers credit for that, but it's just having a conversation around what are realistic expectations going forward. Which anytime you have a period of anomalies, that always makes it tougher on both sides. So the seller and what their expectations are, and if they think that it was all because of their great ideas that they grew the business 100%, or are they, realists in that, hey, this was the market, huge rising tide lifting all boats, and they were positioned well to capitalize on that. But what does that mean going forward? So it's it's been interesting. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say that we haven't had the same trials and tribulations the seller had from supply chain disruption, et cetera. I think our team's done an amazing job in navigating it and course correcting in real time. But yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the fun parts about the job is talking to sellers and, being empathetic, because what they're seeing and what they're living through are the exact same things that we are in the broader organization.
So we definitely have had really interesting times, and seems like these times are still continuing. So today you wanted to talk about and share some tips to build a good business to probably exit as well. So I know you have a presentation for us as well. So perhaps let's go into that and then see what you have for us.
The presentation is titled "Starting with the End in Mind." I think this is really important. Just in life, I think before you start any endeavor, that is going to be a large time commitment, and hopefully you're reaching and going towards a specific goal. In this instance, starting an Amazon business and running an Amazon business, the end in mind might be, an acquisition and, selling your business. Oftentimes it's the largest payday. You go through a year, 2, 3 years of reinvesting all your profits back in the business and inventory and working capital. And you don't really get that return or the payment to yourself until you do exit. So I think it's important to, when you do start, if that is your ultimate goal, you should keep that in mind as you build out systems, et cetera. And I'm going to talk through that today. So, why am I talking to you about this, right? I think I'm in a unique vantage point to having assessed over 5,000 plus Amazon businesses to date. I know, benchmarking, what are good margin structures, what are good, fees as a percentage of revenue, advertising spend depending on category. You can go down the list of things we look at, we've seen and assessed. And I'm talking to entrepreneurs that are successfully exiting on a daily basis. So what are the characteristics? How do they run their business? How do they set their business up for success? And I think that's, really important, and it doesn't get shared a lot. So it's kind of the objective of this presentation is just to help you put, a few key tenets on how to run a business together that I've seen the successful sellers have in terms of a mindset and preparation. And the reason for this, I think, is timely because there's never been a better time to be an Amazon seller. So whether you are just starting out or you're in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th year of your Amazon business, as we saw as we went through 2020, business is great, right? And if you are thinking of an exit, there's never been a better time to sell your Amazon business. So there's a lot of tailwinds for Amazon sellers right now. And, I think it's important that people that are running Amazon businesses start to really treat these as businesses and not just brands or products they launched or, get rich quick schemes or 5-hour work week businesses, because the successful sellers that we've seen, they don't think that way. So how do they think? And these are some of the rules and tenets that, we've collected from successful sellers. So rule number 1, this is a business, treat it that way. Right. This is not something that you might start out something you do at nights and weekends, but once you hit a critical scale and you really need to make a commitment, make that commitment, treat it like a business, right? And that's everything from legal structure to having a daily schedule to starting to think about a team and what roles and responsibilities do you need to hire for? What roles and responsibilities do you need should you outsource, et cetera. But you are a business owner, you are the CEO, and conduct and transact yourself accordingly. Rule number 2, this is really important. So ride your winners, avoid diworsification. This is one looking at a lot of businesses that had, 1,000 ASINs to 2 ASINs. My previous experience professionally was in investment management. I was a stock analyst and stock picker, and helped manage a portfolio of a collection of stocks. And this is one of my learnings over that decade plus experience, is that when you find great businesses, i.e. products in this instance, ride your winners. I think a lot of sellers make the early mistake of, we need to keep launching new products, and we can't just go with one hero ASIN and no one's going to want to buy that, or I'm not going to be able to sleep at night if that ASIN gets shut down or suspended or attacked by a competitor. But oftentimes the most successful businesses and the businesses that are attractive to Thrasio are the ones that have those. They've taken on the concentration risk early days, and they built those listings and products up to leadership positioning on Amazon, and that can be an annuity of cash flow and profit, and that's what's attractive to us as acquirers. You know, I use the term avoid diworsification versus diversification, because oftentimes what we see is they are, you know, as they seek to diversify, they diversify their business, i.e. they produce diminishing returns on invested capital, because, you know, they're now starving their hero products from either advertising budget spend or inventory, or maybe they could be launching variations and continuing to increase that leadership position. But instead they go over here and they launch 5 to 10 new products, none of which wind up hitting. And now they've wasted a bunch of capital, time, energy, and effort when they could have been focused on building up their winner. I also think this is applicable to diversifying off of Amazon, right? I get asked that question a lot. What do you view as an attractive off Amazon percentage of revenue that is going to give me a higher multiple in the marketplace? It really depends. Is your Shopify business, is your Walmart.com revenues, are they generating the same margin and profit profile as your Amazon business is, right? If you have 5 or 10% of your business off of Amazon, and Amazon, you know, you get suspended for a week, is that 5 to 10% going to carry the rest of your business? The answer is no. So I think and those businesses are different business models, right? Shopify, you have to go out and acquire the customers. Do you know how to do that? Do you have a advertising and marketing background, and do you know how to do SEO on Google and Facebook, et cetera? They're just different business models. So I would tell people to focus on your winners, make sure that you're maximizing the value there before you even move off into other diversification, whether it be new products, new, in Amazon marketplaces, or marketplaces off of Amazon. Rule number 3, create value by creating sustainable profits. I kind of just mentioned this before, but, acquirers look for stability, right? The number one question our team always asks when we look at a business is, what is the competitive moat? Do they have a review quantity, a product quality lead versus the competition? Are they in the top 5? Are they in the top 10? Where do we think that business can go to with a lot of investment and enhanced expertise in other areas, i.e. supply chain, marketing, creative? And, how long do we think this lead is going to last? What is that competitive advantage duration period? And that's really important. And the way to do that is by following rule 2, is riding your winners and building up that moat. And, a lot of products on Amazon and markets have fast life cycles. And you have to make sure that you have a realistic view of what the life cycle of your products are on Amazon. And is there a way to extend that? And that's really what we look for as acquirers and think, and that's how we, put a lot of value on businesses that we think have really created that sustainable profit life cycle. On the path to creating sustainable profits is sustainable cash flow. And if you haven't run a retail business before, this is, I think, tantamount. Cash flow is king, right? These aren't businesses that have just human capital, right? It's not a software company where you have a lot of engineering talent that's building a software, and then once that software is built, it's just a high margin cash flow machine. Every instance you sell, you're not having to build a new one. Retail and e-commerce is different. You are outlaying capital to buy inventory, which you are in turn selling. And depending on your payment terms with suppliers, right, you can get in a cash crunch. I mean, we see this a lot from businesses that either are growing very quickly and they're looking for incremental sources of cash and capital, or businesses that start to decelerate their growth curve. and now they're sitting on 7 months of inventory. They can't turn it fast enough to pay their suppliers, and they get in a cash crunch. I think it's, if you're a business owner, you need to really study the inner workings of the profit and loss income statement, the balance sheet and cash flow statement, and how those three interplay with each other, and what the impact will be on your business if revenues don't come in faster than as fast as you think they're going to be when you're making the capital allocation decisions for inventory and launching products. Always have a buffer of capital. I know there's a lot of sellers that live on the edge of levering up, the credit card statements, et cetera, to grow. There's a lot of new sources of capital coming into the Amazon ecosystem, which is great, from 3 months, 6 month, 12-month lending against your inventory, against your revenues, et cetera. So make sure that you have a real strong handle on managing your cash flow, because that is the lifeblood of any retail e-commerce business. Rule number 5, outsource what you know. So this is important. I think a lot of people outsource what they don't know. And when it's your business and you're the business owner, you should be the expert in all the areas that are required to run your business, right? So if it's supply chain, marketing, advertising, creative, before you outsource something, you need to be an expert on it so you can actually monitor and manage who you're outsourcing either tactics or strategy to. Particularly, I think marketing and advertising on Amazon, it's becoming much more pay to play and a required expertise for success, particularly with product launching. As new product launches, it's no longer the days where you can just do giveaways and use review groups that you could 5 years ago, that are now obviously against terms of service on Amazon. So advertising is a key part of launch strategy and ranking today. So before you even go to an advertising agency, understand what it costs and ROAS and all the terms that they use and speak to. Have a real fundamental understanding of what those are, what are the levers, and how you can best leverage them once you do outsource. And so you can have intelligent conversations with service providers and data providers. And then you'll be comfortable, and then you can achieve that ultimate goal of the 5-hour work week, if that is your goal. If you have confidence that the people that you're outsourcing those capabilities to know what they're doing and they're doing a good job, right? So I think that's really important, is to own all those areas first, and then once you get comfortable with them, slowly start to outsource. But I would caution against outsourcing from the beginning without having a fundamental understanding of what you're outsourcing. Rule number 6, timing is everything, right? I often say that selling your business, there's no perfect time, similar to having a baby or getting married is the line that I use. But what is important is you don't want to wait for what you think is the optimal time, right? As a buyer, we're looking for future upside in the asset that we're acquiring. And if we look at a business that's maximized margins, that is at peak market share and peak revenue, that's not as attractive to us as something that we look at and say, wow, we can double this business next year if we start to run ads off of Amazon and drive high converting traffic back to Amazon, or ad spend isn't optimized, or we look at the supply chain and think we can reduce, cost of goods sold by X and consolidate, shipment containers, et cetera, and really leverage our platform. I think sellers often think, well, I want to get my business to the optimal point where I can then leverage and maximize my exit value. And oftentimes, if you get there, a buyer might look at it and say, well, this is really already optimized and this is already at peak. So why would I want to pay up for that when all the value has already accrued to the seller versus what we think can accrue to us in the future? And so, you obviously don't want to sell from a point of weakness and exit from a point of weakness either. But I always tell sellers that they should look at each product, or, broad product categories. Think of it as a, 9 innings of a baseball game, and look at each product and say, okay, what inning is this product in? And what's my confidence interval that, if it's as good as it can get, what does that look like on a revenue standpoint? And how long will it take me to get there? And what is it, at an optimal basis, if every product is number 3, right? If you think number 1 and number 2 is unassailable, if every product's at, number 3 in their category, what does that look like? And then I would start to exit if you're in, think about exiting as if you're in the 5th inning or 6th inning, because you do want that, leave that upside for sellers. And and you're probably launching new products, and you're creating that staggered approach of opportunity. And, that's something that the sellers really look for as well. And, rule number 7, your business is worth what the market is willing to pay. So, I can't tell you how many conversations I have with sellers, and they say, well, I'm looking for X, and I'm not going to sell unless I get, X. And that's fine. They might have, a reason for establishing X, right? Maybe they want to buy a house, or whatever it is. They want to make another investment in another business or start another business, and that's the capital they think they need. But, the beauty of a market is the market sets the clearing price for your asset. I think there's a good percentage of businesses that actually don't find a buyer, given the opportunity set that's out there for buyers. We often talk about, and a lot of press is written about the buyers and how much capital is coming to the Amazon FBA acquisition space. But at the same time, the strength of 2020 and the marketplace awareness on selling your Amazon business has also led to a rash of sellers looking to exit their business and capitalize on their strong numbers over the last 12 months. So, I wouldn't go into the process with a preconceived notion of what you think your business is worth and should get. I would let the market set the price, talk to a bunch of buyers, talk to brokers, et cetera, and really get a feel for where the market's at. And if you built a great business and you've gotten to the point where you think it's an optimal point to sell, listen to the market and, take in what the market's telling you, and hopefully it's a fair transaction for both parties. And this is important. So I think as an Amazon seller and as an entrepreneur, your biggest payday will come when you sell your business. I mean, that is the truth. So setting yourself up when you begin, eyeing that exit is really important. And I think if you follow those, 6, 7 rules that we've laid out, I think you'll be well on your way. And there's a lot of nuance to those. And there's obviously a whole host of other rules and things to think through when you're building your business. But I mean, the exit will be your crowning achievement. And that will, I think, serve you in years to come and provide, hopefully, financial security that you kind of, have been working for, and it rewards you in, the business that you built.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ken, for such a great overview and insights to this topic. So my first question is, usually when people are talking about selling Amazon businesses, the first questions usually are, what can I do in order to increase the value of my business? But I want to ask the other way around. So what are the main things sellers do that actually decrease the value of their business?
Yeah, I think, having, and it's really interesting because I think sellers think it's, if they're going to continue to run the business, it's smart to have, a broad diversification of products. So not one product is accounting for 70% of your revenue, or, your top product is less than 10%. And you scale it to, let's say you scale to like 5 million in revenue, right? Maybe you're doing $1 million in profit. I completely understand that as an entrepreneur, and like that kind of diversification of product breadth. But from an acquirer standpoint, there's a lot of operational burden that comes with that, right? You particularly if you don't know, if you're new to Amazon or Amazon operations and you don't have a team, et cetera, like managing 100 products is much more costly and time consuming than managing 10, right? So like at Thrasio, we really value that low SKU count, high revenue concentration on a few products, because I think one thing that we've really proven ourselves adept at is fortifying and extending leadership on Amazon. And that's, different tactics off Amazon with advertising and different channels and, creative refreshes and things like that improve conversion rates. So I think those two decisions are often, diametrically opposed, which can be tough. But if you are building a business with the end in mind, I think most other acquirers probably feel the same way. Is that it is that lessen the operational burden, and it's the same with supplier count, right? If you got 50 suppliers versus 2 suppliers that a buyer is going to have to work with and manage and find redundant supply chain for, if I think a lot of people experience this going through this year, that you need backup suppliers for your top products, right? So there's things like that will give, or other channels. Are you selling across 10 different marketplaces and 10 different channels, and they're all like 2% of revenue, right? Outside of Amazon or something like that. Like those are things that, just complexity. Oftentimes you think you're helping increase value, but for most buyers, it probably actually decreases the value, or they're just not going to give you value for it per se.
Okay, but what about selling on Amazon by following Amazon rules? Because we know there are a lot of different tactics going on, how to get reviews, how to get better ranking. Do you have any kind of like procedure? Do you go through the accounts and the product pages to make sure everything has been done by Amazon rules?
Yeah. Oh, no, we do. We do a very deep account audit and diligence, and review audit, et cetera. And we know things, it's a fluid terms of service agreement, and what it was 2 years ago is different than what it is today. And so, we just want sellers to be upfront with us and tell us like what was your review or your product launch process, and so we can at least assess the risks, right? It definitely is not something where we would say, oh, you did giveaways and this conversation's over, right? It's okay, when did you do them? How long did you do them for? What was the review attribution? And we assess the risk on, all right, are we going to get a review scrape? If we get a large review scrape, and if you use the buyer group that gets caught up in that, what's the long-term impact to the business and velocity? So we assess all that, but I mean, we've seen it all. I mean, if you can imagine, I mean, we've seen businesses that we haven't acquired that had captive buyer review groups, like a team. I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's not sustainable. So good luck with that. And we do everything right at Thrasio. So we definitely have to take that into account when we're looking at businesses. And we just hope that everybody's upfront and honest with what they're doing, because we've seen it all. Nothing at this point is going to surprise us.
Okay, so if some sellers have done something a little bit shady in the past, but otherwise are following the rules, then they shouldn't worry too much. Just come to you, speak what they have done before, and then you will just go through everything together, right?
Yeah. And look, we might make an assessment like, hey, this is really risky. Half your reviews are giveaways and fraudulent. And, if that happens, we think revenues are around 30% for that ASIN. And then we have a conversation, be like, look, we like the products. We think we can defend and grow. But if that does happen, we need to protect ourselves as buyers, and, maybe we structure a deal around that, right? And come to a shared agreement around it.
Okay, very good. So on average, can you give us an estimate how much time does it usually take to go through the process of selling or then acquiring an Amazon business?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if you go through a broker, it's a longer process. You got to have your financials a lot tighter and the story, and there's a lot of big data collection that happens up front that, will help accelerate the process in the back end. But up front, it's a lot, I think a lot of work to do. Depends on like if you have financials or not. From our standpoint, we make the decision pretty quickly. We can turn around in a few days. Once we start talking and have an initial call with a seller, you either get a P&L or an income statement, either third party or through QuickBooks or their accountant, or we can build it for them. We do that a lot, with limited seller central access. And we can get to a decision and put an offer forward in a few days. And then once that's done, you send a term sheet. Once you sign the term sheet, that kicks off the official diligence process, which typically lasts about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, again, depending on how complex the business is. So if you're selling on multiple marketplaces, have 30 different suppliers and, tons of products, it's going to take longer. If you're selling in the US only, have 3 ASINs, that process might be a week, right? Which is what you would expect. And then once that's done, you get the first draft of the asset purchase or share purchase agreement, depending on your legal counsel and how long it takes to turn that back and forth and red line. Maybe that's another week or two. And then you sign, and then you begin the migration of the assets, which can take 7 to 10 days depending on Amazon. And then once that's completed, the escrow gets released, and then we enter into the full transition period. But it's typically from term sheet to escrow release is 45 to 60 days to getting paid your initial upfront.
Okay, cool. So if anybody got interested now and would like to sell their business or get to know or learn more about the opportunity to sell the business to your company, then what's the best way to reach out to you? Yeah,
Facebook, LinkedIn, or my email, good old fashioned email, ken@thras.io, thras.io. Always happy to have a conversation with sellers, and even if they're just thinking about it, they're just getting started, they really want to sell, they're talking with other buyers and they want to get an opinion from Thrasio. We're more than happy to talk to anybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming here today, and hope to see you soon.
Yes, thank you.
I do hope that the tips you heard in this video will be useful for you in case you will decide to sell your Amazon business. If you would like to offer your Amazon business to Thrasio, let us know. We'll be happy to introduce you directly. Write to us an email to team@orangeklik.com. You will find the email address below in the description. And now I would like to invite you to watch other videos with Amazon business acquirers and FBA brokers. So you will learn more interesting stuff in case you want to sell your Amazon business.